Hello everybody and welcome to the Kamidogu podcast. My name is Christopher and joining me in the virtual podcasting booth is the one and only Toasty.
Hey guys, how's it going? Toasty!
Yeah.
Today's a very exciting episode as we have a special guest joining us, John Turk. First of all, John, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Yeah, no problem at all. Enjoy the hour coming up or however long we go.
Beautiful. All right,
Awesome.
So how are you doing and what have you been up to lately?
Things are good. Just starting the Comic-Con tours. We're trying to figure out, which ones are going to actually open, and we don't even really know what the crowds are going to be like. I imagine they'll be good. People have been, locked down for so long, and hopefully will be anxious to get out and get back to some normal life and meet and greets and hanging out and get back into the world of MK. So I think it'll be good. The first one's in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we'll see after that. Everything else is just, like I said, up in the air for now. So
Very good. So, from what I understand, John, you have a background in the police force. So, why don't you elaborate a little bit on your experience there, and furthermore, how you got the role as Sub-Zero and so forth in the Mortal Kombat 3 game?
yeah, well, I didn't even really want to be a policeman when I applied. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I know my degree was in exercise physiology and in biomechanics and things like that. And I was always in love with fitness. So I started working at a health club selling memberships, and I just didn't like it. And at the time, very few jobs were open for the health and fitness field. It was either you're a PE teacher or you worked for a sports team. And I didn't really have an in with anyone as far as getting hired by a specific sports team. So I kind of was left with, wow, what do I do, And when I started out, I wanted to be a teacher. And then I taught at what's called a university high school. And at the one I was at, it was behavior disorder kids. So I got a real kind of rude awakening to teaching. And every time I would go in there, the kids were just completely disrespectful. And I wasn't a little guy. I was 240 pounds at the time, really into bodybuilding. I had won Mr. Illinois. So, I'm thinking, man, if these kids are rude to me, what are they going to be like to some, small woman or small guy? It's crazy. And I said, I just can't. And I was a little bit of a hothead when I was younger, and not like I would go out and pick fights, but I definitely didn't back down from anything. So I just said, I don't think it's a good idea if I become a teacher. And I decided, well, I'll become a policeman, which makes no sense at all when you think about it. I couldn't handle these crazy kids. What am I going to do in the real world with, being a policeman? So like I said, I didn't even think I'd get hired. And so as the process went on and I kept passing all the tests, started out with 400 guys and I made it down to the last 10. They were only going to hire one person when I originally started out. And then as I got down there, they were going to hire two. And I ended up being two on the list. So that's how I ended up getting hired. And I love my job as a policeman. I got hurt on the job fighting and wrestling with a guy. And that was in 1990. End of 97, but I started Mortal Kombat in end of 94, and then once I blew my knee out, it just got really hard doing anything real physical. I could, I still can work out to a certain extent, but it's really hard for me to run, jump, and do things like that. I can do to save my life, but when I get done, it's going to be pretty sore. So I had 9 surgeries on my right knee because of the injury. And so it's
Wow.
one of those things that kind of took me out of the game for a lot of physical roles, which is a real bummer. But I still stay in really good shape. I still exercise, work my leg as good as I can. But police work just kind of evolved as I was working. People came up to me and would say, are you an actor? Or are you a model? I'm like, no. I had no desire to do that. I just always kind of, I wouldn't say look down on it. I just always thought, that's for pretty boys. And that's for, people that, I don't know, didn't have any ambitions to get a real job, so to speak. Not like I was any better than them, but
Sure.
I just kind of brushed it off, and then I just finally said, everyone keeps asking me this. I started looking into it and I started seeing the money that you could make really good money, and I always thought, my mother and father always discouraged any kind of acting or modeling because they always thought it was, laden with drugs and alcohol, just because you hear all the stories. So I also viewed it that way too. I didn't want to get, put in any weird positions or anything. So I just kind of ignored it. And then finally I just, I'm going to give this a try. And I got an agent in Chicago. And at the time I was really into martial arts. I always was from when I was like 14 years old. I started taking, me and a couple buddies got together. This is kind of a cool story, but when I was like 14 years old, one of my friends, I was always athletic when I was a kid, and so were the group of guys we hung around with. We were into gymnastics, wrestling, everything. And he says, "Hey, man, this guy's teaching, martial arts in his basement." And so we go into his basement, and this guy's name is Chuck, and it's just me and three of my buddies. And Chuck's a black belt, and here we are, 14. He's like 26, 7 years old, and just for probably a good solid 6 months, just beat the living crap out of us in his basement. And I remember one time I got broken. My buddy got an eye socket broken. My friend Hugo, we were sparring once, and he was like 6'4" and at 14 years old. And I misjudged his kick, and he came in and just splattered my nose all over my face. So it was a rude awakening to the world of martial arts. But man, I tell you, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is cool. And in sparring with this guy, Chuck, it really taught me how to, take a punch, know that I'm going to survive after I get whacked in the face real hard. And then I got into tournament fighting. After Chuck had moved to California, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do, guys? And I ended up going to a school called Kim's Black Belt Academy in Chicago, and I got really involved in Taekwondo, and I ended up getting a black belt in Taekwondo, and just got into tons of tournament fighting. And at the time, it was mostly point fighting, but I had a buddy that I used to fight with all the time in school afterwards. We just hung out all the time, and we just started beating the crap out of each other. And there were times I could remember driving home and not remembering anything because my bell had been rung so many times. And so then all of a sudden, I kept up with martial arts. I kind of got out of actual tournament fighting because I went to college and did all this stuff. And so when I got out and I went to audition for Mortal Kombat, one of the questions they asked me said, you have the look we want, but do you know martial arts? And I go, oh yeah, I had a black belt. And they're like, oh, that's so cool, So I had to do a physical audition where they had me get up and actually do moves and stuff. And then they would ask me, okay, can you do this? Can you do this? And they liked what I did because the filming is unusual in that when you're filming, it's not regular speed, So when I throw a punch, I'm going to throw a punch, probably about 90% if I'm filming, But every time I would do anything, you go, whoa, that's too fast. You can't do it that fast because it's motion capture. So I'm like, what do you mean? So each kick was a slower kick, and it had to be more form orientated than speed or anything like that. So a lot of the actors, I guess, that they hired had trouble moving at a slower speed, keeping their leg up, and I could do that because that's what I really worked on when I was in martial arts. I worked on my flexibility, I worked on my strength, holding my leg up. So it really transferred real well into the filming world. So they liked that I could hold my leg up, I could move it slower, and it just worked. And then after I got done doing Sub-Zero, they wanted to know, hey, put this costume on. Then they had me do some moves it was Scorpion at the time. And then they said, hey, you know what? We want to use you for Scorpion. So I said, okay, that's cool. And then they said, put this outfit on. And this is when I had Shang Tsung with the goofy ass long hair and all that stuff. So it ended up evolving with all these other characters. And each one of the ninjas had like signature moves and stances. So they ended up having me do all the ninjas too. And it just worked. Filming went fast. They were really happy because it didn't take as much, editing to get certain things accomplished that they wanted to. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a great group of people to work with. I enjoyed Mythologies when we did that because it ended up being all about Sub-Zero, which is a whole nother story when you look at like Bihan, and then there's me with the unmasked Sub-Zero, and the relationship between them two, the different costume, the different look. And it just all evolved into a whole another entity. But then you have Mythologies where I'm back with the mask on and the Sub-Zero look, which I'm still the brother of, Bihan. And it's just, the whole thing was just, I'm just trying to figure this whole thing out, But it was, Mythologies was cool because it was the first time I got to meet the actors, I didn't know any of them because we all individually went into the studio and did our own filming. And that's when we all came together on Mythologies. Myself, Rich, Leah Montalongo, who played Serena, and Sal DeVito worked on that. He played Scorpion in Mythologies. And then there were two other guys they just hired as actors to play Raiden, and I think it was Chinook, who was a taller guy who wore the red, looked almost like a devil outfit. And that was a lot of fun, man. Just hanging out all day and shooting the scenes. I'm sure you guys seen some of the outtakes from that. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Rich is
hilarious.
A character. Leah was a lot of fun to work with. She was, really easygoing, and John Tobias and Ed Boon and Toasty himself. Dan was real good, and then there was
Dan Forden,
Dan, right.
Yeah.
And then, Josh Sue was another guy. I'm probably leaving out a few other ones, but I think Carlos Pacina did some of the not necessarily the acting on that, but he was working on some of the other parts. But yeah, it was a great time, and then so that's kind of how that whole Mortal Kombat thing evolved. And then I started getting more into acting. I just had so much fun doing the game, and especially Mythologies. Mythologies was hard to act because, first of all, it was my first acting job. I had no clue what I was doing. And what was hard about it is I right away was thrown into one of the hardest environments to act in, which is a green screen. You have nothing around you. There's no environment. You have to create it all yourself. And then on top of that, they stuck a mask over 3/4 of my face. And even though acting is about the eyes, the problem with it is you usually got your nose and mouth to go along with it. So everything I had to do, it was just kind of over exaggerated. I had to pretend the background was there. It was really a lot to digest my first acting job. And then, we obviously had lines. I had to make them sound good and look real. And it was just part of the reason it worked. Rich was good at playing the Quan Chi character, so it brought it out in me. And watching the makeup to do that and all the costume and a couple times I almost got stuck in the eye by those spikes hanging off his outfit. But it is just, it was really
shit. Wow.
Yeah, you look at his outfit in there, Quan Chi, he had these huge spikes that came up. And when he would come around and turn, as I would walk around him a few times, I'm like, whoa, that thing almost grazed across the eyeball. So, yeah, it was interesting job. So, yeah, and that's kind of how I fell into it and really got into the acting part. It just evolved where I'm at today. I love doing it. I love creating characters, but the problem is just I think with my build and my look, with my square jaw, dark hair, I play more of a cop type thing, a military type thing, a bad guy like a mob guy or an Italian mafia, and it's just I'm okay with it. I guess that's what I'm typecast as, and that's what I'm running with. So my film coming out, I play a Nazi in that one. So go figure, I'm playing another bad guy. And so it's just the way it is. And I'm okay with it, or maybe one of these days I'll get a good guy role. Who knows? So
Hey, I got another question for you.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing you in a few sequences actually in The Dark Knight. And in one particular scene, you were actually with Rich DeVizio, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, was there anybody on the set that was aware of Mortal Kombat and recognized you from there? Were there any MK fans there?
One time there was one of the gaffers came up to me and said, "Hey, somebody mentioned that you were Sub-Zero," and it was at a time I wasn't with Rich, because Rich it was another scene him and I were in. It was like a restaurant. We were playing like Russian mobster guys, and people always tend to go, "Hey, you look familiar," and then when I go, holy shit, yeah, I recognize you now. So I get that every now and then. Dark Knight, I just got it once, but the Dark Knight was such a big production, and it's so much about Batman. Most people are thinking about Batman. Sub-Zero doesn't come around in there. But also, you got to remember, in Dark Knight, I had a full beard. I had a suit on. My hair was grown out, so the look was a little different. Obviously, I was a few years older. But what's funny now is people. There's still so many fans all over that I run into. That my wife's a big cheerleader for me. I don't like to tell a lot of people. It's just. I wouldn't say I'm humble. Sometimes I don't like the attention, but she's like, you know who he is? Do you like Mortal Kombat? Sub-Zero. And people go, huh, really? I can see it now. I can see it now. I knew you looked familiar. That's why I always get. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's, I just have that familiar face, or they do recognize me. But yeah, it's pretty cool. But I always tell my wife, "Hon, come on, don't. You're embarrassing me." It's cool. So yeah, it's Dark Knight was good. I was in a part of the movie called The Breakup. There are quite a few films. There was a few TV shows, Chicago PD, another one called Crisis. I ended up being a regular on that, but it lasted about a year, and they kept pitting it against the NBA Finals and other things, so the ratings weren't as high as they wanted them to be. But and I even did Walker, Texas Ranger. I met Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee are my two idols for martial arts. I love both of them, man. I used to love all Chuck's movies, and I got interested in him when he was in Return of the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and he's a really good guy. I met him in person, just really stand up. He talks to everybody, and it's just great. Nice. Kind of taught me something, I've met a few celebrities that in my life that I didn't like, that really kind of was a letdown, and I really kind of took that in. It's like, you got to really be nice to everybody. You're going to run into some jerks along the way, but it meant so much to me when I met Chuck Norris, my childhood idol, and he was cool and he acknowledged me and was a nice guy. It just really sat home. And I remember my wife was really into modeling, when we were younger, and she met a big time supermodel, and the girl was just a complete and utter, bitch. And it really, I just remember her coming home.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just going, man, I'm so bummed. This girl was my idol, and she was such a bitch. And I just saw how that life was. So, yeah, I don't ever want to be that guy. I know I'm going to have bad days, but I'll never be rude to my fans or anything. It's just they're who have made me who I am. And they're the ones who play the game. And the other thing too is it's fun speaking to everybody at the affairs, and I try to make as much contact as I can with Instagram and Facebook, but a lot of times I just can't get to all the messages. I had one guy that got really pissed off because he left me a message and I never saw it. It just got sucked way down into the vortex of messages. And then I just started scrolling my messages going, I got to check, where did this other guy email me? And all of a sudden I go, who's this? And I click on it. Man, this guy was like hoping I'd die and all these things. I'm like, man, he's like, you never replied to me. I can't believe you scumbag. And I'm going, wow, this is pretty bad. And I'm like, I guess people can get upset. So what are you going to do,
Yeah.
So I got off on a tangent there, but so other films and stuff like that. So I'm still pursuing it. I'm not like gung-ho. I just, because I'm in San Diego and there's really not much film here, and what the great thing is I can do auditions now through videos, which is pretty cool. And then if they really want to see you, they'll not fly me, but I can drive up to LA and do that if they want to really do what's called a callback and things like that. So yeah.
Very good.
Fantastic. Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that you're hugely passionate about fitness and nutrition. What are you sort of doing in that space, and what advice would you give to someone who's looking to make a big change in their life?
Yeah, well, fitness is something I just always got into because I was in sports, and I was wrestling when I was younger, and what got me into working out was I noticed I was a real skinny, small kid when I was little. I mean, when I was a freshman in high school, I was 5 feet 90 pounds. I mean, that's small. And I wrestled at the time, and my neighbors were really good wrestlers, and I'd wrestle with them, and they just always, kicked my butt. And I just felt weak. They were strong. I felt, man, they're just overpowering me, So that's what got me into lifting weights. And then when I got into, and I started doing well in junior high in wrestling, and then what's really strange is with wrestling, I just started getting all these skin infections. I got something called impetigo. I got a staph infection. Wow. I got ringworm, and I just started running into all these guys that just stunk, and I just couldn't take it, man. I just said, all right, enough is enough, and I quit wrestling, and that's what got me into fitness even more. I just started, really pursuing martial arts more and the bodybuilding, and for me with fitness is I had people dying around me when I was younger, like relatives that would get cancer, and I just had a lot of unhealthy relatives and friends too, and just everyone getting sick. And my sister has MS, and My other sister ended up with problems. My brother had problems, and my dad had
Wow.
some issues. My mom had issues, and I just said, I don't want to be that, you know. And I
Yeah.
had potential for it. I have like arthritis in my family, and I just said, I was also really, honestly, I was really afraid of dying. I had two friends die when I was younger, and it really impacted me, especially being a 10-year-old kid, seeing them in the casket. It really made me go, wow, I'm afraid. I don't want to die. I got to really take care of myself. So that's kind of how I started out with the whole fitness thing. And I guess if I had to give anybody advice on what to do is, I think what's more important than anything is people try to think about what can I add? What can I bring into my lifestyle or my diet that is going to help me? And it's really not about
Hmm.
that. Really what it's about is what can I take out? And I've had more results from removing things from my diet and my life in general that have yielded greater results than adding things to my life. So, for example, if you're eating, it's take all the garbage out of your diet, and then slowly
Sure.
start finding foods you like. If there's someone in your life, there's two things here you got to think about. Is number one, first and foremost, above all, is stress. If you're going to have stress in your life,
Oh,
that'll kill you before anything will. The next thing is
oh yeah.
your diet, or next thing I would say is exercise. If you're not exercising, like anything else, that phrase, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's so true with your body. After age 30, we decline 1% a year. And the only way to slow that down is through exercise. Because when we exercise, we oxygenate our body. And when we lift weights, we create muscle. And muscle is what drives our metabolism. And more importantly, it's what drives your immune system. So if you don't have enough muscle and you're not strong enough, your body is going to start slowly breaking down at an average speed. But if you're unhealthy and you're getting older, it's going to break down even quicker. So that 1% when you're unhealthy turns into probably 1.25, and it just accelerates things even faster. But if you tell your body, instead of breaking down and you gain muscle, muscle is it's everything. It is the most important thing when you age. If your body's losing muscle, you will age quicker. But if you keep as much muscle on as you can by lifting weights, your body has what's called anabolism, which means build up. When you don't lift weights, your body's in a constant catabolic state, which means breaking down. So if you can keep your body always thinking of building up, it never wants to age. It's going to age anyways. It's just natural progression of things. But you can slow it down so much and be so much more healthy by lifting weights. So first and foremost is get rid of stress. Next is lifting weights is ultra important. It's not just for a show or whatever. I mean, it's great having muscle, but it's so much to
Hmm.
your health and your overall longevity. And then the third thing is your diet. So stress, put muscle on, and eat right, and you will live. I can guarantee you, if you don't have some kind of tragedy or accident, you'll live to be at least 90 years old.
Yeah.
And you don't realize this too. People go, well, what about genetics? What
Hmm.
about this? Just remember, your genetics load the gun. Your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you could have all the genetics in the world to be unhealthy, but if you don't pull that trigger by eating bad, by keeping your stress down, by lifting weights and putting on muscle, you're never going to have that trigger pulled. So always think of it that way. So that's, I guess, a short 10-minute piece of advice. But I'm going to tell you, in all the years I've been exercising and keeping fit, there's no secret. I just told you all the secrets right there. It's hard work. It's never
Yeah.
give up. It's be persistent. And those three things, man, I'm telling you, stress, muscle, and diet are it. That is it. So
Wow.
Nice.
That's incredible,
like
John.
I said,
Yeah.
getting
Thank
in
you for
fitness,
that.
man, it's hard for me to shut up. I love it. It's so
That's fantastic.
I can feel the passion.
yeah.
Yes. So, John, just out of curiosity, did you see the new Mortal Kombat movie? And if so, what were your thoughts? And what did you think of Sub-Zero's portrayal?
I thought it was an okay movie. I think there's things they could have done better.
Oh yeah.
I just think the storylines just kind of weren't that great. I think the acting could have been better, but I think what happened was with the acting is when you have physical roles like that, you're hiring people that more for their physicality than you are their acting ability. And let's face it, as fans of Mortal Kombat, I'm a fan myself. You don't want to have an actor in there who can't do the moves, who can't do the physicality of the role. And so it's a very fine line you're walking is like when the acting and the physicality come together. When I look at a guy like Chris Hemsworth who can act and he's physical too, there's certain roles that you gotta spend the money on to put these people into parts and to draw people into the film. I can still do physical stuff. I just can't do crazy stuff, but I'm real good with my hands still. I can still do certain things with my feet. So, I mean, it's not like I'm excluding myself from any of these roles. I'll be the older, wiser Sub-Zero maybe, and the reincarnation of the one that just died. But yeah, so I just think that, it doesn't have to be a lot of the acrobatic moves, that you see in a lot of these movies, which are mostly everyone's tied into harnesses and things like that. But I still like to, when you look at a movie like Rambo, I mean, he didn't do anything crazy acrobatic. They're just badass, kick-ass, fight scenes and picking guys up, throwing them, punching knees. And you can make a fight scene just look as impressive as these scenes you'll see in Mortal Kombat, or like there's a guy out there. He's a really good martial artist. Gosh, I forget his name, but he's in a lot of the B movies. Atkins. His last name is Atkins. Guy's a great martial artist.
Scott Atkins.
Scott Atkins, yeah.
Yeah.
He's great at what he does, and he's a decent actor. I don't know why he hasn't been in some of these films as well. So you got guys like that who can act and can still do a lot of these moves. And again, like I was saying, you could have that same guy fight someone else who can't do all those moves, but more of a street fight type thing, which I like anyways because they're more believable, I realize Sub-Zero and a lot of these guys might be a hero and they have these special powers, but there's still something about that visceral badass that goes in and punches, elbows, knees, and kicks and just lays it down and walks away, and it's things we can relate with more. Like, I could see myself doing it. But when you got a guy in a harness doing triple somersaults, flying through the air and kicking, you're like, I can't do that. I guess he's a hero, right? But at the same time, it's like, do I see any human being doing that really? Not really. But and that's why you can get a good actor to play some of these roles that aren't as acrobatic. I think sometimes we get too carried away with the physicality when let's look at movies where if you can take Matt Damon and put him in a fight scene and he's not that coordinated, and it's the way they cut the film, they're short, quick chops, you really don't see the whole image. You can make another actor look pretty good too that can act well, that you can put a story in there. So I just think I know I would get off on another tangent, but it's just my perception as being an actor now in film and just seeing how things are done that can be done differently to make Mortal Kombat, just as appealing as a lot of the Marvel films. I mean, when you look at who's the one guy that plays Captain America?
Chris Evans?
Chris Evans, yeah. I mean, he's not doing anything real physical, but he's, still coming across as somebody that you want to watch as well as the other characters. Robert Downey. I mean, look at how good those movies did. So people need to realize, especially a lot of producers and directors, you still need good acting in there. And, if you can get, like, I consider myself a pretty decent actor. I can do a lot of these things that, some of these actors can't do. And I don't know why Hollywood's so caught up in, nepotism in a lot of ways when I've seen so many actors out there that are phenomenal actors that never make it. Just when I was in LA doing cases and things like that, it's just really sad they don't open up to more people. You see a lot of the same people getting the same roles. It's a very nepotistic industry, and it's just I don't know. I just think it needs to change in some ways. We talk about diversity in acting, but we need diversity in all levels. Not just the same people over and over and over again. So,
agreed.
Yeah,
definitely. I guess if you were offered a cameo in a sequel, I know the fans would love it, but would you accept the offer?
Sure. Yeah, I do a cameo too, and I just think they should. I think what's really kind of interesting about Mortal Kombat, it made it different, is there was a lot of hidden messages in it, and you had a lot of things in there where you had to, oh, hey, did you see that? There was Ed Boon, or just hidden things, like even Noob Saibot's name is Boone Tobias spelled backwards,
Yeah.
So I think what they could do is put us all in there with cameo roles that would be really cool for the fans to spot out. Like he comes up and maybe bumps into me on the street, and then I turn around and people, holy shit, that's, Sub-Zero from the game. And then all of a sudden, a scar, when he turns and walks away, a scar appears on my eyes and a freeze ice comes out, and I just kind of smirk and walk away. Like that kind of cameo would be pretty cool. I think.
Sure.
That's cool.
Just little subtle, like I'm here watching you,
Yeah.
So it's a good theme too, because you think about it, they killed Sub-Zero off. I mean, why can't his unmasked brother come back, right?
Exactly.
Do you still keep in touch with any of the other performers from the games?
Yeah. So Brian Glenn and I, who played Shao Kahn, are pretty good friends. We talk pretty regularly. There's on Instagram, we are starting to do touring. So we got like our own little Instagram message center that we all just kind of talk back and forth on. And it's me, Carrie, Rich. It's everybody pretty much. And we just kind of shoot ideas back and forth and stuff like that. So, we're just waiting to see what's going on with all these Comic-Cons and some of these other shows to see if they're going to open up full bore or not. But I'm looking forward to going to the Fayetteville one coming up here in June. It's going to be a lot of fun to see everybody again and get out and do things.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. All right. Toasty, did you want to throw it across to the quick questions?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to play a little game. It's called Massive Strike Questions. Just kind of respond to them as quick as you can, but if you wish to elaborate, by all means, go right ahead.
Gotcha.
So, John, to begin, first question, what's your favorite food?
My favorite food is probably pizza, but I never eat it.
Just your weirdest fan encounter.
My weirdest fan com. I just one guy just wouldn't leave me alone, man. He kept grabbing my arms and just grabbed me, and it was just creeping me out, And then finally, I just, hey, man, you gotta relax a little bit. So, I guess that was kind of the weirdest one I ever had. Nothing real.
Oh, geez.
Kind of weird, just kind of creepy. Yeah.
Do you have any secret talents most people don't know about?
Well, not really talents, but I guess I don't know if you'd call it a talent, but I'm pretty good at eating, man. I can polish off. I got a really bad sneak tooth. So, for an example, I had on my 50th birthday, I got really drunk with or not my 50th, my buddy's 40th birthday. We all got really drunk, and I don't drink at all hardly. This is like the one time in 5 years I drank, and my buddies know my weak spot, which is basically chocolate and Dove bars. And I ate in one sitting, I ate 12 Dove bars.
Wow.
Yeah, I just kept shoveling them down. And then after a bodybuilding show once, I ate 24 sticks of bread from Olive Garden. I don't know if you guys have Olive Garden out there.
Damn!
Whoa. Yeah, I almost had to go to the hospital because the bread was rising in my stomach as I ate it. And I was like, man, my stomach is so jacked. Yeah.
Wow.
So, when I binge.
Do you do any impressions? Do you do any impressions, John?
Not really. I used to do Jimmy Durante when I was a kid. I always used to do him and W.C. Fields, but not W.C. Fields, Charlie Chaplin. I used to walk around the house like that, but not anymore. I really don't. No impressions really.
No worries. Favorite television or movie?
My favorite movie is Braveheart.
Favorite show or movie?
Yeah, Braveheart. I've watched that probably 15 times. It's a 3-hour movie. I just love the chivalry in it. I've always been a fan of Mel Gibson. Yeah, he's done some pretty stupid things in the past, but you try to forgive people when they're sorry, and so I pretty much done that. And I just think his movies have a lot of them. The older ones, they just have some kind of heart to them. Like Braveheart was a great movie. I love Patriot, another great movie. And the older Stallone movies I liked a lot too, but I'd have to definitely say Braveheart. I mean, I just think it was a great film.
Nice. Yeah, fantastic.
What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you?
In Mortal Kombat world or just in general?
Just in general.
General.
Man.
Aside from this podcast.
Yeah.
And trying to discern my accent and what I'm actually saying.
Yeah. Well, gosh. Honestly, the funniest things that ever happened to me, most of them I can't talk about because they're pretty R-rated. But I will tell you this: when I was a kid, I got hurt all the time, just always, messing around. And my parents were a basket case because I've had 5 concussions. I broke my arm. I've had did multiple surgeries for injuries. I've got a bottle busted over my head. I got 6 stitches in my outside of my eye, 7 in my eye.
Ooh.
So I was riding a bike when I was a kid. I had a bow and arrow in my hand, and the thing stuck me right in the eyeball. I had to go to the emergency room for that. So I was always getting hurt, and my dad was getting so pissed. So one day, when I was little, I had these big honker chewable vitamin C pills, and my dad was sleeping. It was like 10:30 at night, and I had to go to bed, and I just brushed my teeth, and I'm like, oh man, I got to take my vitamin C pill, but it's all like that tart stuff, sugary. It means I'm gonna have to brush my teeth again. I'm gonna just try and swallow it whole. So, and I'm telling you guys, it was probably like this big, it was huge, and it was like that thick. I'm like, I have to swallow it. So I put it in there, and the thing gets stuck right here. And I'm like, I can't breathe, and I'm running around. I go into my dad's room, and I flip the light on, and I go, Dad, I'm choking on a vitamin C pill. And he rolls over and he looks at me and he says, just die, you son of a bitch. That's so hard. I went, and the thing came out, and I just looked at him and I go, I can't believe you said that. And he goes, I meant every word of it. My dad was from the Middle East, And he goes, turn the light off, go on. And I went back to bed and I just laughed. Thinking, I can't believe my old man just said that. But yeah, I mean, that was just my life.
Man.
And he was the kind of guy who was like, you don't need to go to the hospital. And I remember one time my mom slammed my hand in the door of the car. And I was like 9 years old.
Yeah.
You could see my little wife in the kitchen there. And I just remember my hand was stuck in the door and I couldn't breathe. It hurt so bad. I'm going, and my mom says, would you shut up back there? And my dad says, you slammed his hand in the car. And she goes, ah. And she pulls my hand out. It's literally crushed and mangled, and it's bleeding. And my dad goes, let me see that. And he goes, come here. And we go into the garage, and he takes a 2x4, or not a 2x, a piece of plywood, puts my hand on it, and he draws in a pencil around my hand like a glove. I'm like, what are you doing, Dad? He goes, you'll see. And he gets out a power saw, and he saws around the hand, and then he plasters it to my hand and gets duct tape and tapes it around. He goes, you'll be fine. Wear that for a few weeks. I go, okay, and I'm looking at the thing like, wow, this is weird. So I go to school, and the teacher looks at me, and the kids are laughing. She goes, what do you got in your hand? Take that off. I go, I can't. My dad wants me to leave it on for 2 weeks. And she's like, what do you mean? I go, well, my mom smashed my hand in the door, and it's beat up, and he thinks this will be good to heal. And she looks at me, oh my God, go to the nurse. Turn out my fingers are broken. But that was just my dad.
Oh, no way.
And so yeah, I ended up going to the doctor, and they put like a brace on it, and real bandages on my fingers and stuff. And they were gonna, take my parents in for child abuse and all this. And once they met my dad, they just realized, okay, he's just major extreme old school from a third world country, But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how I grew up, and all the other stories I definitely can't even mention here. They're different. So.
And last but not least, guilty pleasure.
My what?
Your guilty pleasure.
Yeah. So I love sweets, but I don't eat them that often just because, I'll be honest, sugar's so bad for you. I probably eat it like once every couple of weeks. But my wife and I found we're just big fans of ice cream, but we get frozen yogurt, but a lot of them just didn't cut it. So we go to this yogurt place, and I get this frozen yogurt. It's unbelievable. It tastes like regular ice cream, and we put all these toppings on it, and it feels like my one time I get to indulge, and we really look forward to it. It's called the Yogurt Shack. It's in a town called Carlsbad, California, and it's like my favorite place to go, and it's a real cool little yogurt shop. It's very kind of Art Deco-y, very kind of nouveau type yogurt place, but that's kind of where we love to go, and that's where I guess the only thing I really cheat on. I really eat pretty good all the time. So, yeah, that's a frozen yogurt, man.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Next time I go to California, I'll have to try it out.
Yeah, it's in Carlsbad. It's called the Yogurt Shack. Give a plug for him. He's a really good guy, the guy that owns it. But
will do. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. Thank you so much for being our very first guest.
Yeah,
we're so thankful, and we're looking forward to chatting with you again sometime soon.
Sounds good, man. Good meeting you guys too, and we'll see you soon, huh?
Take care.
Yeah,
Thanks
it
so
was an
much.
honor.
All right, let's take a moment to jump over to our voice memos for this episode. You know what to do. Record a voice memo on your phone, tablet, or computer and send it to mail@kamidogu.com. We've got a couple of submissions for this episode. Michael, take it away.
Hi, Michael Callahan from Newfoundland, Canada, residing in Ontario, Canada. I've got a question for you. Mortal Kombat Conquest. It's an amazing series. I want to know, how much do you love it?
Wow, thank you very much for that submission, Michael. I think that is a fantastic question. I think Conquest is probably the most underrated piece of work in the Mortal Kombat franchise. I think it was absolutely phenomenal. I think it followed good in the footsteps of the movies, like in terms of its feel. I know obviously it's based a number of years before the first movie, but nevertheless, it was a lot of fun to watch. I thought the fight choreography most of the time was very amusing to watch. And the performances, a lot of them were extraordinary. For example, Adani Meropis as Quan Chi and Jeffrey Meek in particular, who played Shao Kahn and Raiden, I think they were the best performances of the entire show. Obviously, some performances were cringeworthy, but it is what it is. There are a lot of episodes that really stick out to me. For example, any episode with Quan Chi, Vengeance, Twisted Truth, The Essence, and things like this. Serpent in the Ice is another fan favorite. In terms of any horrid episodes, there are some like The Warrior Eternals. I thought it kind of started off the show in a very poor manner. I think that could have been handled a lot better. It came off a little too corny for my taste, but I found, especially around halfway in the show, it drastically improved. It kind of took, in my opinion, a slightly different direction, and that's where it started to pick up. I have very fond memories of watching the show here in Canada on the Space Channel at 9:30 on Thursdays. I would always make sure to be up and watch the show. It was just my absolute favorite part of the week. And so that is my opinion of that particular show. What is your opinion, Chris?
Well, mine's kind of interesting. So basically, when the show was out, it was broadcast in Australia at a really strange time. It was on 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And being an older child in primary school, I was only learning how to set up the VCR for recording. So I would often look at the TV guide and I'd always look back and be like, damn, I missed that episode. And I really only ever watched maybe 3 to 4 episodes because I always missed them, or sometimes they'd have huge breaks where it was almost like a filler show. So it would be on and then it wouldn't be on for a month and then suddenly it was on. So it was really hard for me to actually watch it. So I have some homework to do and I am keen to check it out. So yeah, I might talk about it in a future episode, but for now, I'm keen to check it out. I do remember quite a few episodes, but that was quite a few years ago, so I don't want to say anything just in case I'm recalling completely wrong.
Sure.
All right, so our next memo is from Lou.
Yo, this is a message for Christopher and Toasty. It's Lou from Lou's Life, and congratulations on the Kamidogu podcast, guys. My question to you is, if you could film the next Mortal Kombat movie with the current story that we have, whose character would you develop the most in the sequel and why? Look forward to hearing your response, boys.
Toasty, did you want to kick this one off?
Sure, absolutely. That is a excellent question. And a tough one for me. I'm kind of torn between two particular characters from the first movie in terms of opening up their whole role in the sequel. I think I would like to see a lot more Liu Kang. It was an absolute pleasure to see him finally appear in the movie, and he's the champion that we all want to see take the limelight to begin with. It's just what we're used to, and I think it flows the best. They had Cole kind of introduce us to this world, and I understand that, and I think they did an all right job with that. But I think in the sequel they need to lessen the amount of screen time with him and kind of just really delve into Liu Kang's character. Now, furthermore, he lost Kung Lao, which is a huge, huge deal, and I really want to see just how that's going to affect him in this next movie. I think it'll be interesting to see if perhaps there's a little bit of a dark tinge to him somewhere. You know what I mean? Deep down. For example, it was drastically exaggerated in Legacy 2, but even a touch of that I think would be very interesting. And lastly, I would love to see, of course, more of Joe Taslim. He nailed the role of Sub-Zero, and he has expressed on several occasions that he wants to be Noob Saibot. So to see him return and turned into this Noob Saibot character would be ideal for me, because Noob is probably my favorite ninja-esque character, and I think seeing his whole persona on screen would just be petrifying. I'd love to see his abilities finally in motion in cinema, and conclusively, this opens up, of course, Quan Chi, and he is my all-time favorite character. So to see him kind of form the Wraith we know as Noob Saibot would be a real pleasure. How about you, Chris?
I definitely agree on the Liu Kang side of things. I think if they can bring Kung Lao back somehow, I think it would be cool to sort of, even if they went back and sort of explained the origins of the Shaolin monks, to have Liu Kang, Kung Lao, and even Bo Cho, that would be incredible. Mm-hmm. Of course, I want to see more Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I think that's fantastic. And, with Bihan gone, possibly coming back as Noob Saibot, that would be incredible. But then, Kuai Liang, to have him, with Scorpion would be great. I hope that the sequel doesn't focus too much on Cole, because, like you said, I think he was introducing the world. But, obviously Johnny Cage will probably play a huge part in this one. But I'm going to go a little bit differently on this one. I might actually say Sonya Blade, because she's always been a main character, but I don't think she really gets a lot of time on screen.
That's true.
She's tied in with Jack. She's tied in with Kano. Fingers crossed Kano comes back, because he was incredible.
With that metal faceplate, yes.
Yeah, maybe they'll, maybe he will be, become the Kano that we all know and love in terms of the way he looks. But I think Jessica McNamee did such a great job. I think she has a lot to give, and Sonya is such a strong character in the series. I think there's a lot to explore there. And, and she ties in with all of the characters anyway, all the heroes. So, I think if they, form some sort of giant team, it would be a great ride.
I agree. That would be good.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Once again, a big thank you to John Turk for being our special guest. Remember to use the hashtag Kamidogu podcast to join the conversation on social media, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your platform of choice. Most importantly, don't forget to tell a friend about us to help spread the word, as we have some big things planned for future episodes. A 5-star rating would also be awesome. Again, don't forget to send us your voice memos. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, Toasty, this second episode has been a whole lot of fun. Take care, guys.
Have fun, stay safe.